Hey guys, Scott Fishman here with a great guest today. She was just inducted into the TNA Wrestling Hall of Fame. Velvet Sky, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thank you so much. How are you?
Good. It's so great to connect with you, especially with such an exciting time. Of course, Velvet Sky, along with Angelina Love, the beautiful people, as I mentioned, just inducted into the TNA Wrestling Hall of Fame, will be at the Embassy Suites in Orlando, my own neck of the woods, a great wrestling town of Orlando, November 23rd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So your chance. What I love about this convention is it's all slam down and it's all women, women's wrestling on
Yep.
full display represented all over the diverse mix. I mean, what does it mean to you to kind of see, after all these years, being in the business, it would be unheard of to see a women's wrestling convention, but now, there's so much, it's embarrassment of riches of talent from today, from the past, and the future. So talk a little bit about that.
I think women's wrestling has evolved so much, even from, back when I started in wrestling. God, it was been so long. I got my start in 2001-ish. And like you said, back then it was women's wrestling really didn't exist. It was more, eye candy and valets, which I loved that era. Okay, don't get me wrong. Like I was molded through the Attitude Era, the Divas era. I loved that. But a women's wrestling, and all women's wrestling convention back then, unheard of. you
Yeah.
know, um, just to see, like I said, what it has evolved into all these years later is just it's amazing, and it's just women have they've made their mark in the business, they've cemented their legacy in the business, their spot. And it's no longer just a man's world. And I think a lot of the men really love and respect that. I know, speaking personally, from my own experience with Angelina Love when we were in TNA, and we were getting, the beautiful people were getting the highest rated segments on the show week in and week out. When we would go to the back, all the guys would high five us, they'd congratulate us. Like none of them were in competition with us. None of them thought we were, stealing their spotlights or taking their spots, or they were just very, very happy and proud, that wow, these women they're killing it,
Yeah.
they're and so it's just a breath of fresh air to see how far women's wrestling has come since, I started in a way before that, of course.
Yeah. This list is there's so many top talent here that are coming out. Is there anyone you're looking forward to seeing or
All of them, all of them. And for those who don't know, Angelina and I, we're gonna be doing pro photo ops at 1 p.m. As you said, the convention's from 10 a.m. to 2, and our pro photo op spot will be at 1 p.m. So don't miss it. Up close and
Yes.
personal with the BPs.
Yes. And other pro photo ops, I believe the Inspiration, for example, is another team that made waves in WWE and beyond. TNA now Knockouts tag team champions. Mandy Sachs is going to be there as well.
Yes.
So just an incredible array of talent. Of course, this comes at a time when you were inducted into the TNA Wrestling Hall of Fame. Such a great speech that you and Angelina um, made. It really inspires, and representation is so big. So I think those that watch this now, who knows what the future will bring for them, because they'll see and they'll go back and they'll watch the TNA Plus app and they'll see your body of work. Now that you had a couple weeks to kind of reflect on that experience and being back there, kind of how do you look back on that, and what does that mean to you now that you had that appreciation?
It's still so surreal to me, and I know I'm speaking for Angelina as well. It's surreal to the both of us. You get in the business, just hoping to get noticed by a TV wrestling shot there, your big break, wrestle on TV and be known worldwide. And like that was good enough for me. It's like, wow, I did it. I made it. I set out this goal, this career goal in my life and in wrestling, and boom, done, made it, retired, happy. Never expecting, to have that career highlight be one upped by being asked to, participate and be inducted into the TNA Hall of Fame with Angelina Love. I mean, it's a dream come true. And,
Yeah.
like I said before, it's, you see all these women icons that came way before Angelina and I remember as a fan before I got into the business going to wrestling shows, whether it was WWF shows, independent shows, and seeing all these women like these icons that way before my time, and I'm looking at them going, wow, I want to be like them. I want to follow in their footsteps. I hope to accomplish, a quarter of what they've accomplished in their careers. And now, being able to be referred to as icons in the wrestling business is what's like, whoa, what is this life? It's just amazing. It's
Yeah.
surreal. It's amazing. It's greatly appreciated. It's humbling, to have made history and forever be cemented in the legacy of TNA wrestling.
Yeah. And they're in a, they were in a rebuilding phase for a lot of years, and now they're trying to kind of build momentum. When you were in TNA, it was kind of unheard of to see any interaction with WWE. I mean, how surreal is it for you to kind of see this partnership?
I think it's freaking awesome. I think doing those crossovers, it's just, seeing talent that, were mostly, TNA talent getting their shot to shine on a WWE platform, and just seeing like the crossovers WWE to TNA, TNA to WWE. I think it's amazing. I think it's genius. I think it's brilliant. I'm excited that in 2025, nearing 2026, that TNA and WWE have this, like back in the day, unspoken, unheard of working relationship. I remember, even back when I was in TNA and before that, it was like hush, hush, hush. You can't mention one company on another company's
Yeah.
television, or else, you get in trouble. But now it's like, it's just, like I said, it's evolved. The business has evolved so much. And I think it's great that WWE and TNA have this, this cross promotion, this working relationship, because it's just, it introduces TNA talent to a WWE audience, and gets them more exposure. Maybe there's diehard WWE fans that, have never seen TNA, that, or just not fans of TNA, that are now being introduced to TNA by way of the cross promotion, and vice versa. So, I mean,
Yeah.
again, it's just great.
And I mean, I look back and I'm like, man, what would have happened if the beautiful people in Lay Cool had a tag team match? Like it's just this sky's the limit. I mean, no pun intended, the sky, but like when you think back, I mean, as a wrestling fan, it's just like it would have been incredible. Like, it's too bad this collaborative spirit wasn't around back then.
I know. I say that all the time lately. I'm like, man, it would have been really cool for Angelina and I to be able to cross over into like the WWE waters, and, mix it up with some of the girls there, and, the NXT girls too. But, it's okay. We are more than happy and grateful for the careers that we've had. And, I'm retired from in-ring action, but in this crazy business, we say this thing called never say never. So
Yes, and there's so many opportunities as well. I think what needs to happen more, and I think I spoke to Gail Kim about this, is more women, and Christy Hemme is just more women at the seat of the table when it comes to a behind the scenes perspective on the creative team, coaching agents. We're seeing a lot more of that with Madison Rain and others on AEW as well. I mean, is that something that you would want to pursue one day? Is kind of being working as a producer? I mean, you're so creative, so I think you'd be
thank
great for
you.
that.
I would have the time of my life to be able to like dive into like a producer role, specifically like for, entrance choreography,
Yeah,
because there's so many times. I mean, and the talent have their entrance and everything down. Nothing needs to be fine tuned. Nothing needs to be changed. I'm not saying I'm going to come in. I would want to come in and like change everyone's entrance and tell them that this isn't working, this isn't working. But I feel like I would excel in a role like that, to just kind of give them more ideas on how to make their entrance or an entrance like that much more grand.
yeah,
And, kind of just like behind the scenes stuff like that, just like entrance choreography, producer role, ambassador. I mean, Angelina and I, we had talked about that too. And there's definitely, a, this a spot for that, I feel like, in the near future. Um, some sort of, behind the scenes role, or who knows, even an on screen role.
Hmm.
But I feel like for me personally, and I know she feels, well, she's still kind of actively in the ring. I'm active in the meet and greet part of the business
Yeah,
still, where I make appearances at conventions, shows, signings, but just nothing, no physical activity.
right.
Um, but an on-screen kind of character role would not be completely weeded out for me as well, and her as well. So, we'll see. Going back to TNA at Bound for Glory, where it all started for the beautiful people and just seeing familiar faces and meeting new faces, meeting Carlos Silva, it being around, that locker room, our home environment all over again, it reignited this kind of spark in me that I never lost
Mm,
anyways. I'll never lose that spark for wrestling. Once you're in the business, whether you're retired or not, you're always your heart, your mind, your body, your soul, your blood, your guts, everything will always be, cemented in wrestling. So even though I'm not active in the industry, as much as I was before, I'll always want to be and strive to be a part of it some way, somehow, just because it's like I love it so much. It's my heart and soul. It's what I worked my whole youth for,
yeah, yeah.
the only thing I ever wanted to do in my life. So I'll never let it just fall by the wayside, ever.
Well, we love to hear that. The pigeons
Thanks.
are will forever be loose.
They're
Um,
flapping in the coop, as Taz would say.
You mentioned, you mentioned being at Bound for Glory, and you were also, I mean, you talk about your in-ring career is, in the rear view, but I love that you had that Impact 1000 moment and experience as kind of like that moment that kind of wrapped up everything nice in a bow. But things weren't always peachy keen. You made no bones about it when it comes to TNA and your experience there. Did coming back kind of make you kind of think, okay, this is kind of like coming full circle, but it kind of reassesses. Like I had these bad moments, but TNA is finally getting the respect that it deserves. That's for being such a bad word for so long.
What do you mean by that?
Just being able to come back as after having a few, when it comes to your experience with TNA, you've had its ups and downs, but a lot of it was, management related. You've made no
Oh,
bones
Dixie
about
Carter.
that.
You mean Dixie
Yeah,
Carter?
yeah. So, I mean, kind of coming back, it kind of just like you mentioned, it reinforces your feelings of TNA and what it really meant to you, because I'm sure there were moments where you're like, I don't want to be here, I want to leave. But having moments like this, kind of, I guess what I'm saying is, like, for so long there may have not been a moment where TNA got this like rising from the ashes as like from the phoenix, because there was a point where we were wondering, like, is it going to survive, and then what would happen to the legacy. But do you
Right.
find that its success now? I guess I'm doing a terrible job of setting this up,
I
but do you feel
understand what
like
you're
now,
saying. I have
yeah,
an
yeah,
answer for
do
you.
you
I
think
have
the
an
leg
answer.
yeah, do you think the legacy now, you're so grateful for that they're having this rebirth, because it helps, because history hasn't always been kind to TNA, but now people are kind of remembering it a little bit more, like, oh yeah, there were some really great moments.
Well, yeah, I think that history hasn't always been as kind to TNA because of poor management decisions. And I will go on record to say it's because of Dixie Carter. Um, I never had any personal, run ins with Dixie, but I'm not and have never been a fan of her or her choices or her decisions for, talent in the moves that she made in TNA. And I'm not the only one that feels this way. It's just, for a while it was really doing well. You had Dixie's parents, that, Panda Energy, that were kind of funding it and keeping it afloat. And she was kind of just like the stand-in person, the in-between person, to keep it running or whatever. But it was her poor business decisions that ultimately made the ship start to sink. And then talent, we had that meeting. I forgot what year it was. Was it 2009 or 10?
Yeah,
I
the
don't
clip
remember.
the clip came up recently too.
Yeah.
People got to
Yeah.
see it.
And, it was pretty much, we had no idea that that was even taking place. We were in the middle of a production day. A lot of the girls were in the makeup room getting ready, hair and makeup for pre-tapes. A lot of people were, eating and catering, people going over their matches. We had to just, okay, we'll stop. We have to go have a talent meeting, which, the talent meetings, they were a normal part of a TNA workday. No big deal. But we had no idea that, we were going to be recorded like this. and put on the spot and be kind
Wow.
of like bullied by this woman that has no idea what she's talking about. And her speech, obviously, it was self-explanatory for those who saw the clip recently surface. It was pretty much her way or the highway, and if we don't like it, we can leave. And it kind of took all of us aback. We were just like, I mean, as you can see on our faces in the clip, everyone was just like, what? And it was being recorded and it had to be aired on Spike TV for her to just show the size of her balls, and just to kind of stroke her ego. And people that are the white knights that are fans of her will say, oh, Velvet, you're just being bitter, you should be grateful, she gave you an opportunity. No, 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 no. Jeff Jarrett gave me an opportunity. Jeff Jarrett signed my TNA contract. Okay. We all just kind of had to stand by, and we were force fed Dixie Carter down our throats. And we had to just all keep our mouths shut at the time because, there really was no other place to work other than WWE at the time. And I, for one, I just kind of rolled with the punches because I'm like, I'll be damned if I worked my ass off on the independent scene for 6.5 years, almost giving it up before I got the call from Terry Taylor in 2007. I'm like, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. As much as I don't like this woman, I'm going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to let her ruin my big break, my shot here in TNA. Roll with the punches. There's so much more positive in TNA. The roster was stacked. Other aspects of management were great. The Knockouts locker room was phenomenal. There were so many positives amidst the one negative.
Hmm.
And my decision to leave in 2016, it was not because I had an injury or because I didn't want to be there anymore. I was always grateful for my time in TNA. I will never forget where I came from. I will never forget, the people who have helped me along the way in the company, get to the level of success that I have achieved. But in 2016, my contract was coming to an end, and I decided I did not want to resign because at that point, she just made it so unbearable for so many of us. Like, I didn't want to be around it anymore because I was no longer having fun. It's not because I wasn't grateful. It's not because, I didn't like people there. She made it so freaking unbearable for a majority of us, which is why people were opting out of their contracts and leaving and jumping ship. I was healthy in 2016, but I was not having fun anymore. And I opted out to not resign, when my contract was coming to an end. I've been there firsthand. I know a lot of people online when opinions are voiced about a particular person or talent or power that be, you'll have fans chiming in about with their 2 cents, which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I was there firsthand. I had ears everywhere. There were Spike executives that would say things, and you hear things from other aspects of management, and you witness things firsthand, and you're like, wow, okay, this is what really happened. So I've seen a lot in my time there. I know a lot more than people think. Um, Dixie served her purpose. I'll give her her flowers. She served her purpose. Her mom and dad's money kept the company, afloat during a time where it needed a little bit more of financial backing. But I don't respect her for the way she talked down to people who could do nothing for her. I've witnessed firsthand, her demeaning people, burying people behind their back to their face, just conniving things that like you see as a talent that you shouldn't see and you shouldn't hear. And you're like, okay, all of this has formulated my opinion of that person. And, ultimately, to answer your question, that was the real downfall or beginning of the downfall of the company, in my opinion, and the opinion of my peers, because, people talk and we all kind of had the same opinion for a while, but people just had a hush hush because, you needed the job, you wanted the job, you loved your time in the ring there, and, her way or the highway, I guess.
Seems like if we had a TNA Unreal during that time, it would be a really an interesting Netflix show,
Sure.
for
But
better or for worse.
no one was gonna speak out at the time because like I said, everyone just loved being there and because they got to live out their dream and wrestle and, be on live TV and pay-per-view, worldwide TV. So everyone just kind of, just they did the best they could. Talent management and, they just
Yeah.
did business together, for,
Yeah.
for the sake of what they loved.
And it's sad, life is too short, so you would think hopefully like someone would see, this is affecting me in this way, even after all these years, and come and try to make a connection. Has she ever kind of tried to connect with you in any way, knowing, your viewpoints are out there and
No,
how
I have her
far?
blocked on everything, like purposely. And
Okay.
I don't want to hear, like I said, I've seen and I've heard enough. And a lot of people will see this and they'll think that I'm being negative and that I'm being harsh and that I'm coming down and that I'm, slandering. I'm really not. I'm just being honest and giving my honest perspective from the time I was there for, geez, 9 years, 10 years. I've seen everything. I've heard everything. I've witnessed everything firsthand. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, so I'm really not trying to be harsh or cold or rude or negative. I'm just giving my honest feedback from someone who was around it, for so
Hmm.
long. This is what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. And I
And
appreciate that.
the people that, I'm sure the few people that beg to differ with me will be, those who were kind of like, riding the coattails of her, which whatever, it's fine, to each their own.
Yeah.
I was never a butt kisser. I'm not a yes ma'am, a yes sir when it comes to someone that treats people that could do nothing for, and I'm not talking about me. She never talked down to me or treated me poorly. Personally, I never got that close to her to let her even try that. But I've seen, like I said, I've seen how she speaks to other people who could do nothing for her. And these were wonderful, wonderful, hardworking people that just didn't deserve that treatment from her. And I see that. And when I would witness what I witnessed, I would actually go to the person that was spoken down on, and they were so distraught that I remember, I'm not going to say who it was, but we were backstage. It was either a pay-per-view or a live TV taping. And this person, like, this was not solicited, her just, demeaning. And I heard what was being said. And this was a wonderful person she was talking down to. And I walked over to this person after, she got done spewing, and they were just like in tears because they just couldn't
Wow.
believe how they were spoken to. And I was consoling this person and, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean, like I said, these are my hands-on experiences with this woman and what I've seen, how she's kind of left her mark negatively. And I mean, I'm sure there's tons of people out there that had positive experiences with her too, but to each their own. And that was just, my personal viewpoints and experiences, not based on hearsay,
Yeah.
but based on I'm there and I've witnessed it.
And you think now, hopefully now, not only for TNA, but for there's more of a visibility and accountability, I think, whether it's the wrestlers or someone back, like it feels like now, like people wouldn't be getting away with certain things that they may have in the past. I mean, at least from my vantage point, from what I've seen.
Right.
Hopefully, we like to think that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. It's kind of hard when you're in a position as a talent where, you've worked so hard to achieve your dream of becoming a professional wrestler. You finally make it. And then there's that one person that's just making it really, really hard for you to just do your job. But you got to just keep your mouth shut for the sake of, okay, I'm not going to be outspoken right now because I love my job. I love what I do for a living. I love that I get to wrestle professionally. And you just have to bite your tongue and just know when to keep your mouth shut. And when the time is right, if you get a chance to speak out, and your time is said and done, as a talent, then, then so be it. And let me just go on the record again to say I'm not sitting here and burying someone and being rude and cold and mean and, blah, blah, blah. I'm not that type of person. I'm just really speaking honestly because that clip did surface a couple weeks ago with that stupid meeting she did and that she had to air. And I did speak on that publicly on X, Twitter, whatever you call it. And I was, to my surprise, there were a lot of people that had no idea that was the consensus of pretty much the entire locker room at the time, how displeased they were and how taken aback they were that that was the talent meeting of the day.
Hmm.
And that, I mean, that was a true character of how she operated on a day-to-day basis. It was her way or the highway. Yes, she was the president. Yes, her family's money was funding the TNA at the time, but she has no wrestling background. She has no prior wrestling experience. To run a wrestling company is insane when you just, walking in blindly with a lot of money. But whatever, it kept the company running. It gave a lot of the guys and girls a wonderful place to work during that time, and I am grateful for that. If I
Have you
have to
ever,
put a positive in all this.
yes. Have you ever thought about writing a book? I mean, I feel like that would be
Oh my
pretty
gosh,
incredible.
my one of these days I will definitely have a book, an autobiography, because there's just so much left unsaid and so many things that it would be a really interesting read, let me tell you that. Oh my gosh.
Anyone today that you're a fan of that you're like, whether it's seeing on social media, I know you're probably busy outside of wrestling, but you have your moments where you're watching something, a clip or something. Anyone within women's wrestling that you have your eye on these days?
Oh my gosh, like the, all the girls, and like I'm so excited and I'm so just proud of all the knockouts. Like they're going back to Bound for Glory, and kind of meeting a lot of the new faces for the first time that I've known who they were just from social media and having their name out there, but then meeting all like a lot of the new knockouts. I mean, they're all killing it. I'm so proud of this era of knockouts that have just that they continue to just trailblaze, and leave their mark on women's wrestling. I mean, TNA is and has been on the map for a while, and I feel like it's on the map more now than in recent years. And I just feel like it has to do with management. Carlos Silva is, I mean, I met him at Bound for Glory, and he's wonderful, and he, the talent meeting that he had before Bound for Glory was very, very positive. It was very uplifting, very inspiring. Looking around while he was giving his speech, and during the talent meeting prior to the pay-per-view, I mean, everyone was just so invested and everyone was smiling and excited, by his encouragement. And that is a breath of fresh air. That is what a proper president management does. They boost up their talent, they boost morale,
Hmm.
especially ahead of a big night for everybody.
Yeah,
So everybody went into Bound for Glory, just very, very that much more inspired because of Carlos and his positivity. And that was something that like I took note of like right away, because like I'm a people watcher at times, just to kind of see people's reactions to certain scenarios, and what people are saying. And so I'm kind of like listening to what Carlos is saying, and then I'm looking around at all the talent, their faces and stuff like that, and everyone was just smiling ear to ear, and everyone was just so enthused, and everyone clapped when he was done talking. And that's kind of like that's the boost of morale that the talent needs ahead of a big night.
yeah.
Not this. Save this for when this is absolutely
Needed.
necessary. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah,
That talent go out there and they work hard for you night in and night out.
yeah,
Give them their due. And Carlos did a really, really good job of that. And that was only my first taste of that, because that was my first time being in TNA or back to TNA, since Carlos took over. And I mean, nothing but good things to say about him. He's doing a great job.
great. Velvet, thank you so much for the time. It's always great catching up with you over the years and seeing that you still have such a dedicated fan base. You're still out there and giving back. Hopefully, we'll see you on screen. I still think there's so much for you to give as a personality on screen.
Yeah.
Definitely all eyes on Velvet when she's on TV, whether it's on the mic or seconding someone to the ring. So I definitely hope that does happen for you.
Thank you.
Sunday, November 23rd, it is Slam Down from the Embassy Suites in Orlando. So thank you so much, Velvet. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it.
All right.